Hakom Bukanwa Hatibi. Welcome everybody. Nokon Hanariki Solomon. My name is Solomon. Eri Matora Huka. Wow, you came. Eureki Kikin Raro. I'm very happy. Ramanuta today. Shipibo hoi yoyoi ashanon ikanwa. Today we're going to learn how to speak Shipibo. So much of what I said we're going to cover in today's class. I spent 7 years in and around the Shipibos in Calca in Peru, 2 of which were spent sitting in a hut doing plant dieta, training as a Shipibo curandero or naya. Now, Shipibo is a very tricky language because Shipibos aren't so great at explaining it to you because their worldview is so very different. And until recently, they didn't even have any books. So it took me a couple of years just to learn 400 or 500 words and to say a few basic phrases without really understanding how they were constructed. And then in 2021, I took a Shipibo course, which are quite rare. And after so much time immersed in Shipibo culture, that helped it click into place for me so I could advance quite rapidly. So this class today, if some of the phrases you've heard in Shipibo seem a little bit mystifying and you can't get a decent explanation for them, then I can give you quite an easy introductory shortcut to the Shipibo language. And it's exciting for me to share this because I think it's a fascinating language. Most people go to the Shipibos to drink ayahuasca, but in this class we're just really dealing with how to communicate. So if you're on your way to Peru to go to the jungle, I think it would be pretty cool, as it was for me, to be able to speak a few words to your master in their mother tongue. So a few points about the Shipibo language. It's an oral tradition, and that's, as I think I just said, why it's so hard to get a grip of it at first. There aren't really many books you can consult. I lived in Japan for 2 years, and Japanese itself is a difficult language to learn, but much easier than Shipibo because I could consult books, and there is more of a connection culturally, I think, certainly with modern Japan. So that was possible. In Shipibo, there are very few books, and there are 2 that are essential if you want to, or rather very useful if you want to start learning Shipibo. One is the Shipibo Castellano dictionary, which is a Shipibo Spanish dictionary which you can find online, which is great for vocab. And the other is one which is very difficult to get hold of, but explains the grammar. It's called Lecciones para el aprendizaje del idioma Shipibo. But with both of those, you're going to need to know Spanish. If you do, then they will serve you well. If you don't speak Spanish, then I'm probably the only video online where you're going to find any way into the Shipibo language whatsoever. So, and one example of how much of an oral tradition it is that studying as a concept, intellectual studying, is foreign to traditional Shipibos. They live in the jungle. It's a very immediate, raw kind of life, very beautiful, but it's not recorded in many places, as I say. So, for example, the word for student or to study is kirika akaibo. Kirika means paper or books, and akai, from the verb ati, is to do. So the closest they can come to saying student in Shipibo is book doer. So you're a book doer. Another thing about Shipibos is living in the jungle and with, until the last half century, scant contact with much of the Western modern society. They have a very specific and still maintained worldview. For this reason, in the Shipibo Spanish dictionary, you will find 19 different types of bananas defined, plantains, because bananas are such a staple part of jungle existence. You'll also find hundreds of words for river fish. And lots of forest words. But most of the Western words you will find, as I'll come on to in a second, are just kind of literal phonetic translations of the Spanish. So this is called Shipiñol, which is a combination of Shipibo and Español, no? Shipibo in Spanish. So in that vocabulary, you have things like rocotoro, doctor, okay, doctor. Machito, machete. Pirota, pelota, which means ball in Spanish. So many modern objects simply didn't exist in the Shipibo world until more recently. So you have this kind of, the way in which the Shipibos can sort of align with the Western world, but whilst maintaining the language of their ancestors. Okay, Hatian Noara Bokutai. So we begin. In the majority of today's class, we're going to build up a basic conversation and nail down pronunciation. So first we'll start with saying hello. And there are 4 ways to say hello. This, in fact, even is a little bit of Shipiñol. Because to say hello in the past, I think there were all sorts of different versions, but nowadays an actual Shipibo in natural language, when they meet you, would say hua, which means come, kind of like welcome into my world. And this is even reduced with men to he, and the response would be he, and with women to hu, and the response would be hu. But in a kind of, shall we say, more modern compromise with the Spanish that sort of surrounds them in Peru, they have used Shipibo, traditional Shipibo words, but kind of fitted them to Spanish phrases. And these are completely usable, and in fact are used all the time. It's not kind of foreign to the Shipibos. So let's start with probably the Shipibo #1 word, and which, if you ever go for dieta or drink ayahuasca in Peru with the Shipibos, you'll hear this a lot. So we have hakum, which means good. So in order to kind of create this sort of connection with the Spanish phrases, for example, in English you have good morning, good afternoon, good evening, same thing. Spanish, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, okay? So they take the Spanish, good morning, and they start to translate it with Shipibo words. So you have hakum, good. Morning is yamakiri, yamakiri. Okay, so good morning, hakum yamakiri. Most basic thing you can start with in Shipibo. Moving on to midday, noon, good noon. I don't know whether we used to say that in Old English, but good day to you, good day to you. This is hakung bari apang. Hakung bari apang. This is what you say to a Shipibo when you meet them at midday or thereabouts, somewhere between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And bari is sun in Shipibo, so bari apang. I can't say for sure what apang as a suffix means, but related to the sun. Perhaps it's something like I think it was apogee of the sun, when the sun is highest in the sky. Hakung bari apang. Next, you have hakung yantang. Good afternoon. And finally, if I can find space, you have hakung yama. Okay, and you may notice that you have hakung yamakiri, hakung yama. I couldn't find a reliable translation of kiri, but let's say that it seems pretty obvious that hakung yamakiri is something like good when the evening disappeared or when the evening went away. Okay, so the end of. So yamakiri is the end of night, so morning. So you can practice these obviously with the benefits of YouTube by just rewinding to this part, but hakung yamakiri, hakung bariapang, hakung yantang, hakung yama. Your basic greetings. Okay, we'll leave hakung yamakiri up there, because now we're going to move on to how to introduce yourself. And here we're just creating a basic conversation. So, hakung yamakiri, nokon hana diki Solomon. Nokon hana diki Solomon. Nokon hana Ricky Solomon. Nokon, my. Hana, name. Ricky is Solomon. Okay? Nokon hana Ricky Solomon. And there are two ways to then ask the same of the other. You can just say, and most naturally, Mia kan. Mia, you. Kan, in this context, is like, denotes the question, asking a question. So it's kind of like and you. It doesn't mean and, but Mia kan. If you just said Mia, it doesn't really make any sense. So you have Mia kan. Nokon hanariki Solomon. Mia kan. Okay, and you. Or, if you want to directly ask them, what is your name? How, what or how. Hana, name. Ring, is or are. It's the question form of to be. Like this is the affirmative version of to be, Riki. When you make a question, it's ring. In this example, there are other kinds. But Hawa, Hana, ring, Mia. So directly, what name are you? What is your name? Okay? So, if I'm having a conversation with another person, ako niya makiri. Hawa hanare mia. Nokon hanariki Solomon. Miakan. Nokon hanariki, etc. Your name. Okay? Fred. So, we now have the ability to say hello in the most basic form, and to ask or to provide a name. Okay? So it's very basic. And then I'm just going to cover 3 more words. That's saying hello. 3 more magic words. And these are goodbye. Ako ni makiri. Hawa hanare mia. Nokon hanariki Solomon. Miakan. Nokon hanariki Fred. Okay. Cabano. Kawu. Iraq. So, cabano. So depending whether you're the person leaving or the person staying, there are, and this is in the singular form, I won't go into the plural form, but you're speaking to one other person and you're leaving, you say, Cabano, which means I will go. Okay? Ka from kati is the root of kati, which means to go. So ka, go, banon, future tense, I will go. Cabano. Ah. Got the cat again. Kawu. Kawu. To go. Wu is the imperative, the order. So, yeah, go. It's not rude, but I will go. Yes, go. Cabano. Kawu. And then, because you like the person or want to express goodwill, the magic word, of course, Iraq. Iraq. And this means thank you. Okay? So we can say hello. Hakunya makiri. We can say goodbye. Cabano. Kawu. And we can say Iraq. Okay? So, if nothing else, you have those to go with. Okay, now I'm going to, before we advance this conversation a little bit further, I'm going to go through something which I think is absolutely essential. And I even see people who've been in the jungle for many years and know a little bit of Shipibo. They see it written down as, for example, in the jungle town of Pucallpa, you'll see Shipibo written out. And they will mispronounce the words because they're not the same as the pronunciation you would have in English or Spanish. A lot of them are, but some of them are not. So we'll focus on that now. And this will give you the ability to read Shipibo and pronounce it correctly. Because if you don't, then it's a bit like, I don't know, trying to read any strange language, Chinese or Polish, for example. You try and read it, and it's just it's a different language. So you can say what appears to be written, and no one will understand you at all. Okay, so let's go through the letters of the Shipibo alphabet. Number 1, A, easy enough. And for example, Ani. This is a word you will hear a lot in Shipibo. It means big. If you do dieta or drink ayahuasca, for sure you will hear in the icaros that they sing, the sacred songs, the energy medicine of the Shipibos, the energy technology, Anishinan, Anishina, which means big mind, the universal mind. God, let's say, for want of a better word. Ani, A. Okay, next you have B. And we've already come across this in one of the greetings, Bariapang. Bari. Bari is sun. Okay, so far so good. Okay, there's no single C sound in the Shipibo dictionary, so you have cha. And for this, we're going to, where do I put it? Bring out this wonderful piece of Shipibo artisania. This is the skirt worn by Shipibo women. And even now, the women of the older generation still wear their traditional skirt. Okay, and this is called a chitonti. 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 Beautiful word. Next, there's no D. This is represented by the R, which is quite similar to Japanese, actually. But we'll come on to that in a minute. Next is the first one, which is probably the vowel sound which gets people stuck when they're reading it. And this is Okay. Now, you don't have to get it exactly right. If you're just speaking in English, it would be like in the. No? Very simple in our language. In French, it might be le. It's a bit more It's a bit more further back in the throat. In the Shipibo language, it's right in the back of the throat. Okay, I. Okay, so this is a really important one to remember. Next, already had this one, E. If you remember, Iraq. Thank you. Next, we have J. Now, J in Spanish is jota, jota. So it's a ha kind of sound. It's not exact, but actually in the Shipibo language it is. It's a bit more guttural in Spanish. For example, aprendizaje, no? Learning. In Shipibo it's more like ha, the normal ha in English. So you have ha. Another word we've come across already, hakun. Hakun, good. Next, ka. And we're going to bring back the E again here, like as in ua, I. And we're going to say kana, kana, kana. As you've just seen with this chitonti, kana is the Shipibo designs, the Shipibo sacred geometry. It comes in many different forms, but essentially this is a visual representation of what you may or may not, but quite often can see in the in a Shipibo Ayahuasca ceremony. It's kind of the sacred geometry which underpins all energy. Okay, so this is what they see, and yeah, that's a whole subject unto itself. But a good curandero can actually read this and sing it. It's kind of like an encoded visual language. Okay? Gun. And if it's embroidered using thread rather than painted, it's gu. Okay. Well, that's a little bit more advanced, but one is the design and one is the specific use of thread, embroidery, to depict that design. So, gu. Okay. M. Fairly easy. Matzi. Matzi. Cold. Next we have N, and a word we briefly touched on. Nokon. My. Okay. Nokon chitonti. Nokon chitonti. So N, that's fairly straightforward. When it comes at the beginning of a word, you pronounce it just like an English N, okay? But when it comes at the end of a syllable, it's nasalized. If you know French, or if you are French, this will come very easy to you. Like the nasalized N in French, un, on, an. What's the other one? Can't remember. Anyway, but it's un. Hakun. It's not hakun, it's hakun. Hakun. Nokun. Okay, nasalized N when it comes at the end of a syllable. For example, in chitonti, chitonti, no? Although, because that's in the middle of a word, it sort of comes out more like the normal N. But anyway, hopefully you get the point. O. Uni. Uni is the word for ayahuasca, or rather it is ayahuasca, because ayahuasca is a secondary, this brew in the jungle. Ayahuasca is actually Quechua, from the mountains. It's not kind of indigenous to the mountains. They have other kinds of plant medicine. But in the tribes that actually, or at least one of the tribes, the Shipibos, who use this as who are the kind of masters of it, it's Uni. Now, the O, it's not O, as in cold, and it's neither is it room, an U sound. In English, we have O and we have U. In Shipibo, it's something in the middle, like O, Oni, no con, okay? It's okay to not get too hung up on this, because what you will hear quite often, say with a Shipibo master, would be talk about no con uni de que hakun. My ayahuasca is good, no? But you may hear it like nokon. The nokon sounds a bit more like o, and the uni sounds very much like u. But actually, if you really listen carefully, they are something in the middle. Okay, so there aren't two kinds of o. There's only one. But you'll still be understood, of course, if you don't get it exactly right. So it's o. Okay, next. We have P. Padro. River or body of water. River is Padro. If you remember what Ani means, big, Ani Padro is the sea or the ocean, the big body of water, the big river, let's say. Though Para doesn't actually mean river, it means a body of water, naturally occurring body of water. Padro. Okay, Padro, Ani Padro. S. Sama. Now I'll put this on here. This is just to denote where the accent comes. This is another level. It's not actually a hugely different level, but it's sama, okay? Not sama, sama. Sama is plant dieta. When you go to the jungle, you meet a master, you spend a month or a few weeks or longer, whatever, taking plants and fasting and learning to connect to ayahuasca and the medicine world, the spirit world of the plants, you will do sama, dieta, okay, or diet. Mm-hmm. So this accent, I just tell you this for information here because it's not really at the level we're talking here. But for example, let's take two words. Chisho, if we put the accent here. Chisho. And I'll come on to explain what chi is in a minute. But chisho means buttock, nalga, your buttock, your butt. But if you say chisho, you've got diarrhea. Okay? So as you get further, not at the level we're talking here, but as you get further into speaking Shipibo, the vowel sounds and the accents you use are going to help you a lot to be understood, basically. So, S, we have sama, plant dieta. Next. Is the sh sound. There are two sh sounds. This is the more conventional one, or rather the one which is used in English. Sh, normal sh, shop, shell. No? Shinan, and notice I'm nasalizing the N. This one isn't nasalized. Shinan, shinan. As I said before, ani shinan, great or big mind, your thoughts, shinan. Next we have T. T for tari. And here we have another example of Shipibo Kunu, the sacred geometry. This is a tadi, known in Quechua as a kushma. But a tari is the ceremonial robe that a curandero wears during an ayahuasca ceremony. And if you go back 100 years, then this is what everybody was wearing. Okay, it was the daily dress. You won't see any Shipibo men walking around in these unless they've just done a ceremony or they're in ceremony. Although women, you will see the older generation in particular still wearing the chitonti. But this is a tari, okay? Beautiful kene, the design, but it's also embroidered, so it's at the same time it's kele, okay? It's a tari. Next one is the th sound, th. Tsokas, tsokas. Tsokas means, you could say confused, but it's any disturbed energy. Could be anger, could be paranoia, could be sadness, could be trauma, but it's anything kind of that's not hakun. No? Hakun means good, but it also means life-giving. It also means the beauty of, well, it's not beauty, but it's like good but life-giving. Whereas sokas is where there's distortion in the field. You know, say the kana you have is always beautifully geometric, but when you see it, say in a ceremony, and it's distorted, and it's, you can even see demons, this is sokas. It's like untrue, it's distorted. You know? Okay, so sokas. Next, here's the other version of sh. So for this we're going to say shosho, or shobo. So when you have sh, as in shinan, normal sh. But when you want to say the X, version of sh, you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth and towards the back. Sh, sh, sh. Okay? So you have shosho, which is a plant, plants. Shobo, house. Okay, so you have sh and you have sh. Okay? Different. Last two are fairly easy. Wa. We can talk about wishting. And wishting is a star. And finally, we've already come across this before. You have ya for yantan, for yame, or let's say for yawish, armadillo. So, ya. Okay. So, those are all the ways to pronounce Shipibo. And as I say, if you're going to be reading Shipibo, those can, yeah, let's do a few examples here. So, I remember in Calca hearing a guy who was quite well involved with medicine work there. He'd been there for years, but he hadn't taken the time to really learn Shipibo. So he would pronounce that Jenenete, Jenenete, Hananete. Obviously, if you say Jenenete to a Shipibo, they will have not the faintest idea what you're talking about. But because we've learned the pronunciation, we know that J is ha, E is not e, it's excuse me, and yeah, hana nete, the water world. Hana is the water in its most as an element, shall we say, but hana, okay? Let's try a few more little, maybe tongue twisters. Just to give more examples of the sounds, the more difficult sounds. Now, don't worry too much about this. It's just to look at the sounds. Nokon, nonon, nashiai. My duck has a bath. Nokon, nonon, nashiai. Okay? I managed to have missed probably one of the most crucial letters actually, which is R. Okay? So, for R, let's go for rono, rono, snake. Okay? R, r. So, r, with the r, it's not an English r. It's not a French r. It's more like a Japanese r. It kind of feels a bit more like a dra, no? But r. It's what happens when you form an R and put your tongue towards the top of your mouth, okay? Again, like with the O, if you don't get it exactly right, you can say iraku. You'll be completely understood. But strictly speaking, it's iraku, no? Or rono. And it's also, I mentioned the D, it's quite close to D because, for example, the Shipibo word, which is shipinyol for God, is Riosun. And this comes from Dios, Spanish, God, Dios. But they have no D, so they say Riosun, okay? Riosun, God. So that's the R. Like the and the O and the Ha. This is worth knowing. It's where it's different to English, okay? So, do a couple more fun ones. This might be useful for you in the jungle. So we've got the ts. That's kind of it, really. But tsisoi kiti kirika. Tsisoi kiti kirika. Toilet paper. Okay? Kirika. Paper. Book, paper. They don't make a distinction because it was never part of their world traditionally. But tsisoi kiti kirika could be very useful when you find yourself in a latrine in the middle of the jungle. And then this one's quite fun. Shirki, shirati, shower. Drink your chicha. Chicha is Spanish for corn drink. Okay, shirki is corn. Shirati is drink. It's also the verb to drink. And shower, as you can see there, shower, like we said with kawa, go. It's an imperative, do it. So drink your corn drink. Shirki, shirati, shower. Okay? Okay, I think you've probably got the idea by that. And yeah, don't be overwhelmed by Shipibo. It's just, for me, it's just fun, right? It's difficult, so you can't beat yourself too much about not knowing it precisely or you're getting it exactly right. But you can have shirki shati shower. Shirki shati shower. It's fun to kind of play with these tongue twisters and these elements of language. Okay, let's then build our conversation a bit further and add on, perhaps after the name, or perhaps even before the name, what you might want to ask a Shipibo. And this is, and it's interesting, this phrase, I heard Shipibos say this for years, but none of them could even remotely pull it apart and explain it to me. So it's just sounds, right? I just had to copy until I was lucky enough to do a class. But this you will hear all the time and is a great, they will love it if you can say this. It's very close to Hawa Hanarinya, no? What name are you? So, Hawa, what or how? Kuska, kuska comes from the verb kuskati, to be similar to, okay? So what kind of like, what like, ring, are, we talked about that before, mia, you. So, hawa kuska ring mia, hawa kuskari mia, hawa kuskari mia. Or even, they even shorten it sometimes, hawa skari mia, okay? But this just means, how are you? How, like, approximately, ring mia, okay? What similar to are you? How similar to are you? How like are you? What are you like? How are you? Okay? How kuskarimia? And we have a few ways to respond to that. Without getting too much into grammar, let's use a word we already learned. Ua, I. Ua. Riki, am, to be, is, are, okay? There's no conjugation for the I form, for the you form. It's always just riki, okay? So, ua riki, I am. And easiest one of all, hakun. I'm good. If we want to say thank you, riki hakun, irake. We can add a few more things. I'll just do a couple here, but with my master in the jungle, we always used to say this. It's just the most common thing to say. Riki hakuntani. Now, grammatically speaking, tani means just a little bit, okay? It's like just a little. un poquito nomás, like I'm a little bit good. But it doesn't mean, I think it's more like the English, with their, being English myself, with their habit of kind of being sort of humble and self-deprecating or understated. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. I'm okay. Yeah. But it's more, it's in no way kind of a damping down of your enthusiasm. Eriki hakuntani. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm pretty good. Okay. Okay. And I'll give you a couple more words that you could use, depending on if you're not feeling hakun. You might be feeling pashkin. 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 Tired. I'm tired. Riki pashkin tani. Okay. So the tani doesn't belong to hakun as a positive. It's qualifies it as it emphasizes that quality. So you could say pashkin tani. I'm quite tired. Okay. I'm quite good. I'm quite tired. Pashkin. Okay. And hopefully this is not the case, but you could also be unis. Sad. Yeah. Uriki unis. Uriki unis. Ramanata oidia. Okay. Uriki unis today. Mm-hmm. Or if you're the opposite of that, lovely word. Uriki raro. Joyful. Happy. Uriki raro. And maybe we add to that another of these suffixes. Raro shaman. Raro shaman. Okay. Shaman means that whatever the quality, it's the most excellent version of that. Okay. Hakun shaman. I'm just the most good. Okay. Nice and good. So you probably wouldn't say Pashkin shaman unless you wanted to say something like I'm feeling, I'm just nicely tired. I've been working all day and now I'm just ready for bed, but happy. You could say Pashkin shaman. But unis, you wouldn't say unis shaman. Okay. If you wanted to say very, because it's kind of a version of very, but always positive. If you wanted to say very in a way that's kind of neutral, just conveys a lot of a certain quality, you put it before, and that word for very is kikin. Okay? Okay. So I think, the ones you don't have to add those. You just say riki hakun. But hakun tani is just a little bit more natural. Hakun shaman. Hakun shaman. Another one is birus. Hakun birus. Nothing but good. Nothing but good. This one is birus. Okay, so got these suffixes. And I didn't explain this earlier like I planned to, but that's fine. That Shipibo is a language of, it's called a agglutinative language. And it has quite a lot of prefixes, but a huge number of suffixes. And without thinking I know anything about German, I studied it a little bit, but in German, perhaps you have all these ways in which certain words are added together. You have it in Japanese as well, but they're just constructed together. And then they form more and more meaning. So, yeah, rewind if you want to revise that. But just as an example of Shipibo as a agglutinative language with many suffixes, I have a fun phrase for you. Shinan, one word, although don't worry, they're not kind of precious about the construction of their grammar and their words, certainly not in the written form, because it's a new invention for them. So we have Shinan, Bono, Yana, Yama, Kamwa. Shinan Bono Yama Kamwa. Shinan Bono Yama Kamwa. So we know Shinan, thoughts or mind. Shinanti, the verb, means to think. Bono, to lose. So losing your thoughts, losing your mind. Okay? Yama is the negative form as a verbal suffix. Kan is if I'm talking to more than one of you. And wo, as we've seen a couple of times, is the imperative. Shinambono yama kamwa. Don't forget. Don't forget. Mind losing, don't. Mind losing, don't do. Don't forget. Okay? Shinambono yama kamwa. So that's not something you're going to perhaps need or be able to use in Shipibo for quite some time, but it's just an example of how, you know, you've got from the original verb, then you've got another 4 suffixes added to create more and more meaning. Okay. So, where were we? Hawakuskarimia, and how to respond to that. So, a simple conversation from what we've already looked at. Let's build on that. You meet someone in the evening, and it might go something like this. Hakunyama. Hakunyama. Hawahanarimia. What's your name? No kon hanariki Solomon. Miakan. No kon hanariki John. Hawakuskarimia. How are you? Ariki hakun shaman. Miakan? Ah, Ariki. Raro shaman. Iraq. Iraq mia. Thank you. Bueno. Okay. Cabano. Kawa. Okay. You see how easy it is to just construct a basic conversation. Okay. So, I think that's kind of it for the basic conversation part of this particular introduction. So one thing I'll do to finish is look at numbers. So, 1 to 10, number 1. Wustiora. Wustiora Shinan is sometimes something you will hear, certainly in the medicine community. One mind, one great mind. Okay? Kind of like one love. One love would be Wustiora Nui, but I've never heard that used. But it's just kind of a different conceptual framework for the Shipibos. But what else could we say? Wustiora Kirika, one book. Wustiora Huni, one person. Okay, so Wustiora. 2. Rab. Rab. Okay, 2. Rab. Now, interestingly, traditionally, there are only two words for numbers in Shipibo. Okay, 1 and 2. Because, and this is conjecture, but Shipibos live a very communal tribe, right? Communal life. So they may make huge meals for each other. It's all done big families. So from what I heard from a anthropologist working with the Shipibos, that his suspicion is that because they're so good at estimating number, that they really don't have need for more. It's just like, if you want to be very specific, 1 person, 2 people. But if you're dealing with any more than that, it's just like, approximate. just look and you kind of know. You don't have to kind of ration it out. So, you know, a Shipibo woman will know exactly how to make how many plantains, just estimation by her eye for a family of 15, an extended family of 15. It's just like, okay, this many plantains, this many fish, and then we'll eat well. So only the first two numbers actually are pure original Shipibo. The rest are borrowed from Quechua, which is the Incan language from the mountains. And I just checked it out actually because I'm in the mountains here with a Quechua speaker just before the class, and he confirmed that while they're not exactly the same words, they're very clearly the same. I think, and some of them are exactly the same. Anyway, so if you can speak Quechua, you can count in Quechua, you can probably count in Shipibo. So you have 3 is Kimisha. 4, Chosco. 5, Pichica. Beautiful words. 6, Sokota. 7, Canchis. 8, Posoka. 9, Iskun. And 10, Chonka. Okay? Gustiora Rabe, Kimisha, Chosco, Pichica, Sokota, Canchis, Posoka, Iskun, Chonka. And then you can add a couple more to that. 100 is Pacha. And then 1000 is Waranka. Waranka. Okay? And like in English or any European language, or I don't know, all languages maybe, but to actually multiply beyond the 10, it's kind of a similar formula. So if you want to say 20, you would say Rabbe Chonka, 2 10s. Rabbe Chonka, 20. If you said Chonka Rabbe, that would be 10 plus 2, okay, 12. Chonka Rabbe. If you wanted to say 340, okay, Kimisha Pacha Chosco Chonka. Kimisha Pacha Chosco Chonka, 340. Okay, so just like English or Spanish, it's very similar. It works the same way. So it's not some great mystery, you know, to learn counting in Shipibo. And that's probably because it's borrowed really from Western thinking. Because as I say, number mathematics that's not what the Shipibos did. They were in pure connection to the jungle, and yeah, their whole cosmovision, their whole world traditionally is just very alien to our own, but for that reason, incredibly fascinating and in many respects just super beautiful. So yeah, so I think I'll leave it there apart from one. I'm just going to try and crudely draw a little map just to exemplify how different the Shipibo world is from the one you or I know. The geography of the Shipibo world. And this might not make a lot of sense to you unless you've actually been to Peru. But, okay, so we've got north. The lifeblood of the Shipibo world is the Ucayali River. This is one of the tributaries which leads eventually in Brazil down into the Amazon. Okay, and well, I think might be correct in saying the biggest river on earth, but anyway, you know, the Amazon. But it begins in the Ucayali, and even here in Peru, where it's still, you know, 2,000 miles upstream of where it's really in its full flood, it's still enormous. You know, if you're in Iquitos, which is at the north of this map I'm going to crudely draw, then the river's about 5 kilometers wide. It's huge. It's huge. So let's say this is the squiggly Ucayali, and towards the south is Atalaya. Okay. Now the Shipibo homeland, it doesn't go to Iquitos, even though Iquitos is the ayahuasca medicine center of Peru. It's kind of been shipped out to an outpost, really, because it's not the indigenous tribes of the Iquitos area are not Shipibos. So very crudely, draw a Shipibo world kind of probably starts and ends here. And the river flows, this is upstream. Is it? Is that correct? Hold on. Yeah. Flowing downstream towards the north. Okay. In the center, the homeland of the Shipibos is a place called Pucallpa. Pucallpa is a Quechua word. And it slips my mind what exactly it means. But in Shipibo, Pucallpa is called Mai Hushin. Mai Hushin. Okay? Mai means the earth. Hushin, in this case, means red earth. Hushin doesn't actually mean red, it means kind of colored. For example, a Hushin paranta, paranta is a banana, Hushin would mean ripe, yellow, okay? But not green, okay? So it's kind of moving to, it's becoming more colored, more ripe. But in this case, Mai Hushin means red earth, okay? And this is Pucallpa. And this is the center of the Shipibo world. Towards the north, where it's a bit more wild, sorry, towards the south, upstream, you have districts like Iparia. Okay, this is kind of smaller places. And up a bit further north, downriver from Pucallpa, I say a bit further, I think it's 10 to 12 hours on a boat, is a place called Contamana, which is a city, a bit like Pucallpa. Iquitos is a big city, but it's outside the Shipibo homeland. So the Ucayali River is kind of the main vein of the Shipibos, how they lived. You know, this river provides all the fish, the water which fertilizes the land, carries all the sediment. It's a huge part of, a central part of their world, geographically, anyway. So we have Mai Hushin in the middle. And then there are two regions. Well, there are three, actually. So in the north, we have Chiponki. In the south, we have Roboki. There's actually one other region called Pishki, but I'll leave that out for now. And in the middle, you have, I'm just trying to find, I had to remember its meaning, but anyway, Napon Bukon. In the middle where Pucallpa is, you have Napon Bukon. And this one, I believe, if I'm right, means in the middle of the two. So the one in the middle kind of thing. Makes sense. So Chiponki. So the Shipibo's word for north is not norte, it's Chiponki, because the limits of their universe traditionally is their land. Chiponki, this is the Northland. And the south is called Ruboki. So if you want to say, oh, I'm heading south, it's like Ruboki Kai. I go to the south, Ruboki. They may well now use north and south as Spanish words, norte y sur, but that's an add-on from sort of a later date. But in their traditional language, they describe north as Chiponki, Ruboki as the south. And what's interesting here, we have a couple of examples of prefixes, chi and r. So this is downstream. So it's kind of flipped up. You know, you kind of think of north, if you have an idea, it's kind of above, maybe sort of ahead, and south behind in the way we conceptualize in English. But in the south, chi, as I actually showed earlier, is a prefix for the butt. So Chiponki is the butt end of the Shipibo land, because the Ucayali flows downstream to the north. So downstream in the Shipibo world is Chiponki, it's the butt part, the butt end. Ruboki is the head end, or the part that's in front, above. And Raking is your nose. So is a prefix pertaining to the nose. So it's the top part and the bottom part. Okay. So that's north and south. So I'm just trying to give an example. It's nothing really to do with actual learning to speak Shipibo, but it's just how they think about their world and what the limits of that world are in terms of geography. And then west and east are not called west and east either. But this is sort of halfway similar to what we can understand. West is called Bari Kai. Now, the more observant among you may remember Bari, right? We know these words already. Bari is the sun. Kai, to go. This is where the sun goes. Bari Kai is the west. Okay. By a similar token, east is Bari Pikotai. Pikoti, to appear. So that's where the east is where the sun appears. Okay. So that's just to end the class there. Just to kind of try and, I mean, there's so much richness in the Shipibo world. If nothing else, when you enter into it, you just are kind of have your mind open to just a different way of being, you know. So, and that is felt through the language as well. Okay, have a great day. It's been a pleasure giving this class, and yeah. Hakon nete winoe itang kabano. Have a great day, and bye for now. Hello again. I'm back home after the Shipibo class, and just wanted to let you know about something I forgot to mention, which is that I do offer personal tuition in Shipibo online. So if you're interested to take your Shipibo learning further, perhaps if you're coming to Peru to drink ayahuasca or do plant dieta with the Shipibos, I can take you through to the next level. How to express desire, past, future tenses, commands, a lot of useful vocabulary that will be kind of obvious when you're in the Shipibo world. And also, if you're so interested, I am a trained curandero or onaya in the Shipibo tradition. Onaya means with knowledge, comes from the verb onanti, to know, and ya means with. So the Shipibos call their curanderos, their healers, onaya, or onayabo, the plural. So for that reason, I can also offer insights and some guidance on the development and understanding of your own Icaros. Icaros are the spiritual technology, the spiritual healing technology of the Shipibos. When you drink ayahuasca with the Shipibos, the master will sing you Icaros, and these are sacred chants, but they're channeled. They're not something you learn out of a book or online. They're something that come from your years of dedication to dieta. So I can help you to unpack and understand a lot of the vocabulary that's used in Icaros, because this is a kind of language, a kind of cosmic language apart from everyday spoken Shipibo. So I can help you understand what you're listening to, if that's of interest to you. And also, if you would like to start practicing singing Icaros, then I can help you with that as well. It all comes down to your dedication, really. So those are the things on offer. I offer private tuition at $65 an hour if you wanted to just have one-off sessions. And if you wanted to book a package to take you through the vast majority of things I know, certainly in terms of grammar and vocabulary, then a 5-class package I am offering for $250 US. So if that's of interest to you, great. And for now, I hope you'll be able to use and reflect on what we learnt today. So yeah, maybe I will see you. To contact me, go to my website. I'll leave a link in the description, but it's kurimoney.com. There you won't find any information on the classes themselves. You'll find content related to my actual work, but I would leave you to find that if that's of interest to you. But if you were interested in Shipibo classes, then please use the contact form there to get in touch with me, and let's see what we can learn together. Okay, have a great day. Again, akon nuto widamwe. And yeah, see you soon. Ciao.